against your body, there is no place. I envy people who miss their mother, or miss a place, or know something called home. The absence of a body against my body created a gap, a hole, a hunger. This hunger determined my life. I have been exiled from my body. I was ejected at a very young age and I got lost. I did not have a baby. I've been afraid of trees. I have felt the earth as my enemy. I did not live in the forest. I lived in a concrete city where I could not see the sky or sunset or stars. I moved at the pace of engines and it was faster than my own breath. I became a stranger to myself and to the rhythms of the earth. I aggrandized my alien identity and wore black and felt superior. My body was a burden. I saw it as something that unfortunately had to be maintained. I had little patience for its needs. The absence of body against my body made attachment abstract, made my own body dislocated and unable to rest or settle. A body pressed against your body is the beginning of nest. I grew up not in a home, but in a kind of free fall of anger and violence that led to a life of constant movement, of leaving and falling. It is why at one point I just couldn't stop drinking and fucking. Why I needed people to touch me all the time. It had less to do with sex than location. When you press against me or put yourself inside me, when you hold me down or lift me up, when you lie on top of me and I can feel your weight, I am here. I exist. For years, I've been trying to get back to my body, to the earth. I guess you could say it's been a preoccupation. Although I have felt pleasure in both the earth and my body, it has been more as a visitor than an inhabitant. I have tried various forms of getting back: promiscuity, anorexia, performance art. I spent time by the Adriatic and in the green Vermont mountains, but always I felt estranged, just as I was estranged from my own mother. I was in awe of her beauty, but could not find my way in. Her breasts were not the breasts that fed me. Everyone admired my mother in her tight tops and leggings, with her blonde hair in a French twist as she drove through our small, rich convertible in her town in her yellow convertible. One gawked at my mother. One desired my mother. And so I gawked and desired the earth and my mother, and I despised my own body, which was not her body. My body that I had been forced to evacuate when my father invaded and violated me. And so I lived as a breathless, rapacious machine programmed for striving and accomplishment, because I could not inhabit my body or the earth. I could not feel or know their pain. As I had no reference point for my body, I began to ask other women about theirs. In particular, their vaginas, as I sensed vaginas were important. This led me to writing the Vagina Monologues, which then led me to talking incessantly and obsessively about vaginas for many years. I did this in front of strangers. I did this everywhere. As a result of me talking so much about vaginas, women started telling me stories about their bodies and their vaginas. I crisscrossed the earth in planes, trains, and jeeps, hungry for the stories of other women who had experienced violence and suffering. These women and girls have also become exiled from their bodies, and they too were desperate for a way home. I went to over 60 countries. I heard about women being molested in their beds, flogged in their burqas, acid burned in their kitchens, left for dead in parking lots. I went to Jalalabad, Sarajevo, Alabama, Port-au-Prince, Peshawar, Pristina. I spent time in refugee camps and burned out buildings and backyards and dark rooms where women whispered their stories by flashlight. Then I went somewhere else. I went outside when I thought I knew. I went to the Congo, and I heard stories that shattered all the other stories. In 2007, I landed in Bukavu, DRC. I heard stories that got inside my body. I heard about a little girl who couldn't stop peeing on herself because huge men had shoved themselves inside her. I heard about an 80-year-old woman whose legs were broken and torn out of her sockets when the soldiers pulled them over her head and raped her. There were thousands of these stories, and they saturated my cells and nerves. I stopped sleeping. All the stories began to bleed together: the raping of the earth, the pillaging of minerals, the destruction of vaginas. They were not separate from each other or from me. As you know, in the Congo, there has been a war raging for almost 13 years. Nearly 8 million people have died, and hundreds of thousands of women have been raped and tortured. An economic war fought over minerals that belong to the Congolese but are pillaged by the world. Local and foreign militias from Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, they enter villages, they murder, they rape wives in front of their husbands, they force the husbands and sons to rape their daughters and sisters. They shame and destroy families and take over the villages and mines. The minerals are abundant in the Congo: tin, copper, coal, and coltan, which go into our iPhones, our PlayStations, and computers. Of course, by the time I got to Congo, I had witnessed the epidemic of violence towards women that scoured the planet. But the Congo was where I witnessed the end of the body, the end of humanity, the end of the world. Femicide, the systematic rape, torture, and destruction of women and girls, was being employed as a military corporate tactic to secure minerals. Thousands and thousands of women were not only exiled from their bodies, but their bodies and the functions and futures of their bodies were rendered obsolete, wombs and vaginas permanently destroyed. The Congo and her stories consume me. The women consume me. Here I began to see the future, a monstrous vision of global disassociation and greed that not only allowed but encouraged the eradication of the female species in pursuit of minerals and wealth. But I found something else in the Congo as well. Inside the stories of unspeakable violence, inside the women of Congo was a determination and a life force I had never witnessed. There was grace and gratitude, fierceness and readiness. Inside this world of atrocities and horror was a red-hot energy on the verge of being born. The women had hunger and dreams, demands, and a vision. They conceived of a place called City of Joy. It would be their sanctuary. It would be a place of safety, of revolution, of healing, of gathering strength, of coming together, of releasing their pain and trauma. A place where they would declare their joy and power. A place where they would rise as leaders. We began to build the place with them D-Day, and we were committed to finding the resources and energy, and the process was grueling. There were no roads, there was no electricity, there was no water. There were rising prices and corrupt managers and horrible oversight by UNICEF. We were scheduled to open in May, but on March 17, 2010, they discovered a huge tumor in my uterus. Cancer threw me through the window of my disassociation into the center of my body's crisis. The Congo threw me deep into the crisis of the world. And these two experiences merged as I faced the disease, and what I felt was the beginning